Dragons have been a central part of Germanic stories for over a millennia. While depictions of dragons have changed, they are still a central part in modern Germanic stories. What do dragons have in common? First, let us discuss Fafnir the dragon in the Volsung saga. Fafnir was a dwarf who demanded weregild, life gold, for his brother Otr, who was killed by Loki. Loki went to get the gold, but rather than giving his own gold, he decided to steal it from someone else. He made his way to a waterfall where the shapeshifter Andvari stashed his treasure. Andvari morphed into a pike, and Loki grabbed him and demanded him to fork over his gold. Andvari didn't want to hand it over, but was forced to in order to preserve his life. Andvari morphed back to his normal figure, and Loki saw his golden ring. Besides the fact he had stolen all of Andvari's treasure, he still lusted that one ring. He demanded that Andvari give it to him. Andvari begrudgingly gives the ring, but curses it, that whosoever possesses the ring will be destroyed. Loki takes the ring regardless, and brings the gold to Fafnir. Fafnir, still lusting, demands that Loki also give his ring. Loki begrudgingly gives it, but after Fafnir takes the ring, he is corrupted by its power, and morphs into a dragon. Fafnir eats his father, and his brother Regin narrowly escapes. The most important part of this story is that the dragon Fafnir was once a man. He was corrupted by gold, a symbol of wealth, and a ring, a symbol of kingly power. Though the Volsung saga would be considered a fantasy story now, back in its day, this tale was an equivalent to The Wolf of Wall Street, or any other film which an ordinary man is corrupted by power and wealth. There is actually a decent amount of evidence showing that Beowulf's dragon was also a symbol of corruption from wealth and kingly power. The dragon was described as living in a barrow, which was a burial mound reserved for kings and chieftains. These mounds would be filled with the king's earthly treasures and sometimes even their ship. This practice is comparable to the Egyptian pyramids and other practices throughout the world. It seems likely that this dragon was living in a tomb full of treasure because he was once a king, and a greedy one at that. Why else would a dragon be in a king's tomb? This idea that the dragon was a corrupted king is further supported by the Germanic belief in Draugr. Draugr were corrupted kings which haunted their tombs and guarded their treasure. While little is spoken of Beowulf's dragon, it is very clear that this dragon was greedy. The dragon was slumbering peacefully until one of Beowulf's servants stole one of its pieces of treasure. Shockingly, the servant only managed to steal a cup. This one small act of burglary triggered a fiery rampage and also the dragon's death. It is possible that Beowulf's dragon was the king of the Wilflings, who had been slain in battle by Beowulf's father. The Wilflings literally means the wolf people, which perhaps was a compliment, though I feel it was not a purely positive statement. Though wolves were revered for their strength, they were also symbols of brute savagery. On that note, if they were savage and wild, they likely didn't follow all of the Germanic customs, and were likely to be greedy. Part of me wonders if it was unethical for them to demand life gold for their fallen king, just as it wasn't ethical for Fafnir to take life gold which had been stolen by someone else. Perhaps excessive greed made a Wilfling leader become a dragon, or perhaps the dragon was the corrupted King Hermod. Though it is possible that Beowulf's dragon was any corrupted king, perhaps one not mentioned in the story. Just as a dragon in Beowulf had awoken to one stolen cup, Bilbo enters into the dragon's lair and steals one cup, which awakens the dragon Smaug and causes him to eat the dwarf's ponies. Later, Bilbo has his famous interaction with Smaug. The enraged dragon then lashes out on Lake Town, only to be slain by Bard. Smaug wasn't transformed by his greed, as was Fafnir and likely the dragon in Beowulf, though we later see as the dwarves and humans are corrupted by their greed and prepare to fight against each other, showing how greed corrupts and caused these mortals to almost become like dragons. So while Smaug wasn't a corrupted king, he could be seen as a personification of the savage beasts we become after we are corrupted by greed and power. This idea is central to J.R.R. Tolkien's work with the Barrow-wights, Nazgul, and Sauron. Beyond this symbol of greed and power, there is likely another reason that dragons have stuck with the Germanic people for so many ages. Dragons have been depicted universally throughout the world. Some cultures have a positive view of dragons. Generally, this occurs if the dragon is a phallic symbol of male fertility. But with these exceptions, snakes and dragons have a negative meaning, sometimes even becoming the personification of evil itself. Interestingly, this fear is not only shared by humans, but some of our evolutionary cousins. Some primates have a distinct call for snakes. Perhaps you could say dragon is one of the first words that humanity had learned. The deep-seated fear for reptilian monsters has possibly existed for millions of years, as a conflict between two rival classes. What I find particularly fascinating about the Germanic depiction of dragons is a new fear, a fear that humanity, those who look like you and you think you can trust, become your biggest nightmare. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are watching it for fun, you're a nerd like me, and you might enjoy my videos to the left. And if it's 3 a.m. and you're cramming for school, you may want to watch my video on the right. But let's be honest, if you're doing either of those things, you're a nerd. Well, at least you're not the nerd making these videos. And whatever you do, don't subscribe. That way, it's harder for you to find my videos next time you need my help.